Good evening and welcome to the Talladega Super Speedway for the 10th round of Droppin Hammah Cup Series action live on the KBueno Racing Network. And it is going to be a good one here from the 2.66 mile venue in Talladega, Alabama. I'm Francisco Bacalao, excited to bring you the coverage of what is bound to be another one of these fun super speedway races that we have come to see on this channel and in this series in particular. Droppin the Hammah has had some really good runs. Brandon Banks taking the victory at Daytona to start the season off. Steven Stempien with an absolute domination of the Echo Park Speedway of a few weeks ago. And we'll see if someone else or a repeat winner can go to victory lane at Talladega. Probably one of the biggest wild card tracks on the entire schedule. As we take a look at that schedule now here at the middle portion of our grid, where we start kicking off into our summer months. Had the off week last week for Mother's Day weekend. We'll have yet another off week next Sunday for Memorial Day weekend before we return on May 31st at the Michigan International Speedway, kicking off our summer stretch all the way through our 4th of July break and returning at Sonoma on July 12th. So this is really going to be probably the most difficult portion of the schedule, considering the track conditions we'll be facing on and the selection of racetracks at that. So it's going to be a tough one to see how everybody manages, who could emerge successful throughout that stretch of races and really start to come out as a potential championship favorite halfway through our season. Let's take a quick look at our points so far through this season, as Brandon Banks has really led the points ever since the first race of the season. He has had a grip and a strength hold on that position. Jaden Porter has tried to see if he can keep himself close, and he's done a solid enough job. He's only 15 behind the 5 machine going into the night, 40 ahead of Cedric Hunter, who won last time out, or 2 weeks ago at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Jaden, of course, coming off that victory at the Kansas Speedway, which we'll cover here in a few moments. And Steven Stempien, Charles Van Schaik, other drivers to complete our top 5. You look at that Chase cut line back in 12th. Just 9 points separate Kevin Roy and Jesse Whittington on what is a very tight battle. You look at Stephen Harlow, who just moved his way above the cut line in 11th. He sits 13 ahead of Jesse Whittington's position. Justin Erb, McCrelly, and Charles Stevens, a few of those drivers immediately below the cut line that have a little bit of work to do. They have about a 30-ish point gap to make up on the 22 and 6. And a race like tonight, it could either go really good in one direction or really bad in the other one, all up and down those points standing. So going to be crucial for you drivers to make sure that they keep the car clean and that they're alive at the end of the race, knowing what's at stake here from this racetrack. Let's take a look in the rearview mirror over at the Kansas Speedway. It was a race, to say the least, here from Kansas, providing with the 110% horsepower package. We saw all sorts of action with Justin Erb leading us to the green flag, though trouble struck early right here for the 32 machine. Gets sideways in front of Jaden Porter right there. Warren Kauke gets into the back, and around goes in front of the field. There you see some more contact further up ahead, and that wouldn't be it. Here's Charles Stevens and the 9 of Timothy Stubblefield making contact, spinning here at the front. Cedric Hunter would end up going around in this crash too, collecting a few other vehicles in the process, as the 32 nearly went upside, or the 84 nearly went upside down. Had a good battle early on in the lead throughout the different strategies that were tried. Stempien, Erb fighting hard for that top spot. And what we discovered really early in that race was it was going to be difficult to put the power down, especially on the long runs, as that one of those spinners would prove it to be right here. The 96 of Christian McCrelly would spin down the back straightaway. No caution would come out, but right here you see the 98 of David Duran has a big moment and a big save. At the same time, the 42, that's James Kunkel getting sideways on the inside. We saw that a lot throughout the race, and ultimately during these green flag pit stops, it would prove very critical for this one right here. Stempien has the rear step out on him, makes contact with the outside one. At that point, the car brakes, has trouble controlling it, and spins out towards the inside. And right here, when he goes back up the racetrack, that's when the yellow flag waves, putting us under a new race, essentially. After having been leading, this put the battle in the lead between your top 2 in the point standings, Jaden Porter and Brandon Banks, fighting hard for those positions. And Cedric Hunter, who was involved in one of those incidents, a little bit further back in 3rd, as he had been trying to do a recovery drive of sorts for a good amount of time here. make his way up into the race lead past Brandon Banks, and David Duran was also trying to put on his fair share of a recovery charge. Down the back straightaway, Ethan Thompson, making his second start in this series, goes for the spin around the halfway portion of the race. A few laps later, the 20 of Justin Erb, your pole sitter, would get in trouble, has little control on his race car, comes down in front of one of those other vehicles. That would not put us under the yellow flag on that instance, but right here we have another great battle with Cedric Hunter, Warren Kyle Keith, as Hunter was once again trying to get his way further back towards the front of the field, but he has a bit of a moment there off of turn 2, almost has it saved, but just has to hold it down, lock it down, and that's going to bring out the caution yet again in this race. And a few laps later, Kip Easley and the 75 making contact right here. Hunter gets clipped with some big damage on his rear. Ray Rogers, Steven Stempien also get a part of it. Another big crash for the night. There's the hit by Hunter as he almost had that wreck missed, but unfortunately just gets enough of it to hamper his car and probably put him out of contention in that one. David Duran stumbles on the restart with the extra power with the old tire, spins to the outside, slams the outside wall. No caution for that incident, but it would set us up on our final couple of runs towards the end. It was Jaden Porter that was trying to hold off a potential charge from I believe it was the different car, and it was Jaden Porter ending up victorious after getting out to 1 second lead and takes his second win of the season. Also a second win at a 1.5-mile racetrack, which he had done at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway earlier this season. So good stuff from the Louisville, Kentucky native, as he'll try to go for a third win on the season tonight, as Cedric Hunter has the most wins claimed by any driver this season, that being with 3. Well, drivers are making their way onto the pit road. They are starting to grid up here on the front straightaway in the tri-oval at the Talladega Superspeedway. So let's head trackside and get you the starting grid for what is going to be for tonight's race. And on the pole, it is Charles Van Schaik. Set a really good lap time, 54.94. He's going to sit on the front row for his first career pole, with Kip Easley starting second. No renowned superspeedway racer is Kip Easley. Third place goes to the 88 of Steven Stempien, got that victory at the Echo Park Speedway. Dana Shepard will be rolling off in the 4th spot. 5th place goes to Lauren Vincent in the 07 machine, had a really good run at Daytona earlier in the season, with Garrett Walden rolling off in 6th. 7th will go to the number 94, Jesse Whittington. He's on that bubble for the time being, so he's going to need a really good run here tonight. Same can be said for Stephen Harlow, 13 to the good. Can't afford too much to go in the negative direction, starting 8th tonight. Brandon Banks, the winner of Daytona, is going to be rolling off in 9th, with Jamal Pugh rolling off in the 10th spot. Jaden Porter going to be starting in 11th, with Matthew Perusini's number 96 machine in the 12th position. Warren Kyle Keith starts in 13th, and Brad Fulham will be rolling off in 14th. Justin Erb rolls off in the 15th spot, with James Kunkel in the 12th machine to his outside of row number 8. Daniel Holdcroft rolls off 17th. Timothy Stubblefield will be in the 18th spot. 19th goes to the 32 of Richard Swavely, with David Duran rounding out your top 20. And from here on, drivers that did not set a lap time in this race in our 23 car field. The 92 of Jason Anderson were in 21st, Charles Stevens in 22nd, and Kevin Roy rounds out our 23 car field. Not a huge crowd to participate here at Talladega like we might see at some of our super speedway events, which usually can creep upwards and over the 30 car count mark. Only 23 in what is a middle race of a sandwich of breaks between last week and next week, but what is surely going to be an interesting one. And this race, as far as the admin crew, they came up with some changes. Warren Kyle Keith and the admin team, they made a setup for this race, and on top of that, they reduced the horsepower on these race cars to approximately 93% of what they would normally run on the super speedway package. Normally they run about 510 horsepower. They have approximately 474 under the hoods here tonight, and 40 kilograms of weight has been reduced, which is just a little bit over 88 pounds removed from the stock cars for this race. And what that does is that's in hopes of trying to eliminate some of the fuel games that get played here at the super speedways that we've seen in real life and even on iRacing, trying to get the pack to race more. And we're going to be experiencing this for the first time proper. You'll be experiencing it with me as well, trying to see how it turns out in live action. This could be a potential use of the package for the future. We could see this used ahead. We could see some modifications made to it when we get to Daytona in the summer. So it's going to be important to see how this race plays out, how the strategies unfold, and how that could dictate into future super speedway races. Let's go over our SKM sim racing analysis, where we have 125 laps scheduled for this race here tonight, totaling about 332 miles for our race, our skmcars.com 330. It's going to be a fun one, as these super speedways tend to be, and a long one at the same time. With this setup, one thing that is of note is that the cars do travel slower around this racetrack, even in a pack form. Those lap times you saw in qualifying of just about 55 seconds, that kind of paints the story. You're almost taking a whole minute to go around the entire Talladega Super Speedway, and it definitely won't be under 50 seconds once everybody's bunched up and ready to go, which we are right now. You see the stack of drivers on the top of your screen taking their EOLs for tonight's race. Apart from that, we are 2 by 2 as the pace car heads to the safety of pit road, and the field has to wait all the way to halfway down towards turn 1, that pit exit where the start finish line is 1,000 feet further. Charles Van Schaik, Kip Easley lead us to the green flag from Talladega. A clean lap number 1 sees Charles Van Schaik lead lap number 1 from the pole, with Steven Sempion, who crept his way down into second to split him and Lauren Vincent. Kip Easley dropped to 5th, and you see a little bit further back, that second lane has kind of formed up here. Leading it is Garrett Walden's number 43 Machine. A little bit further up top is Matthew Perusini, kind of stranded into that third lane. And with the lower horsepower figures these cars have, it's going to be interesting to see how a third line can develop. They're not going to have as much momentum as we're used to seeing. As we'll go on board now with Walden as he leads that line. And you have the rough live telemetry there of the actual speed that he is carrying out there on the racetrack. And you see him as he doesn't have any cars in front of him. He's just being pushed as this line leader, if you will. But you see the difference in speed already between what he is normally used to running and what he could be running, as Jaden Porter does slide in front of him. You see how that immediately made a difference as the Ride the Dente Machine returns here. As there you see a little bit further up, the 94 Jesse Whittington thinks about moving up in front of Jaden Porter. Kept easily left with that gap on the inside. Brandon Banks will have to try and fill it. This could offer the outside some kind of momentum to try and close that gap up to your top 3, which remain steady on the inside. No indications that they'll move up yet, but a steady stream of 2 rows as the entire 23 car pack is properly here and together, nobody left out. Now you see the good run they got off of turn 4 there. Whittington and Porter working together nicely. as Whittington looks to maybe get to the outside quarter panel of Steven Stempien and side draft him and try and pull him back. And for those that have heard that term so much but don't quite know what it is, a side draft is not so much as a typical slipstream effect. You're not actually gaining speed by going down there. You're actually going into that quarter panel and aerodynamically dragging that car on the inside backwards. So it's not so much as you speed up as that they slow down, and that's the process for trying to inch your way up when you are in side-by-side lines like this, to which Whittington has done a good work of it to get level with your race leader here on lap number 4. And what we could see throughout the night is the choice of, if you get clear of that inside, do you jump down there or do you stay up high? Looks like the answer for him right now is to stay up high, and Porter thinks about going down low. He goes down to cover the spot. Now Porter goes back up to the top, the lane that got them there in the first place. Now he'll get outside of Whittington to try and take over the top spot for himself. And you see how they snake on the back straightaway to do just about that, to get close to side draft, but then get away. And it really worked well for them here in turn number 3, as Porter has taken them all to the very outside lane here. Now just back to the middles. You see the inside working its way back. You see some 3 wide further back. That's Jason Anderson. That's found his way up into the middle, kind of staggers that middle lane. And that 3 wide hurts the middle. It kind of hurts their momentum, their ability to really keep their momentum wound up. And it could favor the inside lane of making a charge back. But you see Porter doing nicely to keep up. As Jamal Pugh, you see 3rd car in line, trying to tag along and get this whole lane clear. And they're doing a good job in this outside lane. Normally the inside pulls through the first couple laps and it's pretty distinct. Now you see Walden go to the bottom, leaves out Porter. And it immediately kind of throws the outside lane for a loop. As Porter, you see, he goes from leading this race to almost outside the top 5, just from the loss of momentum alone. And this could be something that we'll see plenty of all night long. As look how far back they keep falling. And you see further back, that's the 12 of Kevin Roy, or the 12 of James Kunkel. They keep trying to make that 3rd lane work. We've seen the 12 car jump up to that 3rd lane. David Duran in this case with them. When they're side by side like that, they feel like they have nowhere to go, but they want to get up to that 3rd lane and move. Problem is, if you don't have that many cars, you're not going to go anywhere. You're definitely going to need some drafting help to have any bit of success in this race. And Garrett Walden used it nicely. And he gotten himself up to the front here as we complete lap number 7. And if you remember the Daytona race to kick off our season, it was relatively clean for a good portion of that race. We had green flag pit stops, cautions, kind of broke it up in a bit of odd timings, but otherwise, not that many instances of the yellow flag were being waved throughout that entire event up until the end of the race, which is something we normally tend to see out of super speedway racing. A lot of green flag middle sections and perhaps a little bit more caution-filled endings. But that's not to say that at any moment in a pack like this, trouble can strike, which is the exact fear of drivers. And if you're Jaden Porter, you're 2nd in points, you have multiple wins under your belt. Might not be the worst thing in the world if you crash right here. At this point, you're looking like you're in a good spot in the chase. He is going to miss, most likely, the Michigan race as part of being at the Nashville Super Speedway for the Real Life Cup Series event, like myself. So, his shot at the points lead that he's been fighting for to at least lead once, it may end up becoming a little bit of a taller task going into the summer. As you see the big run that he gets from that push from Jamal Pugh, he'll slot into the inside, and that could be an attempt to just try and break up whatever Banks can do to Kip easily. Those are the DBR teammates, and you see that that middle lane is properly died off here. You see that third lane trying to form. It's got 3 cars now. That's less cars that are in the middle. That is not going to help that middle lane form up at all. But you see those openings on the inside. You'll see some drivers from that outside maybe see this as an opportunity to kind of tuck in and kind of go single file for a bit. It is early. You won't win the race on lap number 10, but you could lose it, as he now has Warren Kyle Keith to his bumper. So we'll see if that pair can do something about the new lead group that has found their way at the front of the field and have held control for the past 5 laps. Here's the onboard look from Jaden Porter as he's once again leading that second lane up. Almost 191 miles an hour into turn 1 there. And you see just how much the car, even in this draft, how much it bogs down the speed compared to what we're used to seeing with these cars when they are going full throttle, but even with what we see on iRacing in general. That last lap, your race leader, Garrett Walden, ran a 50.874. And they're not fuel saving. They're running that pace without saving fuel, I promise you. But that is going to end up being a topic of conversation before the night is over. Because although they're not saving any fuel, as I think that Stempien that jumps up, yep, he'll go to the outside to try and get help from Jaden Porter, kind of steal the front of this field. You're going at a slower pace, but maintaining wide open throttle. That opens the door for less amount of laps that you run on fuel, even with the 100% fuel fill. I think the estimated number of laps we have for the tank is approximately 37. I could be off by a handful of laps, so we'll just have to see how the drivers and teams kind of orchestrate their strategy runs as the race goes on. And if we get to potential green flag pit stops, which we could expect to see in about 25, that's Van Schaik actually jumps up to the third lane to drop out of this pack. He was comfortably in second or third there, but he goes up to the third lane, gives up all his track position. Not sure exactly why. And he falls all the way back to outside the top 20 and almost at the very back of this pack. But to kind of tie a bow on what I was saying, 37 laps when it comes to fuel, if that's the maximum that these drivers are able to get, you're looking at least 3 visits down the pit lane at any point throughout the night's race. At any given point, you'll be looking at those numbers, plus an additional 14 laps. So depending who you are and who you're with, there's going to be at least one stop where you're taking less fuel. And trust me, that's always on the minds, is if you can shorten that pit stop any little bit. Once you find a strategy that works and something that can help you out immensely, there's just no going back from it. As Stempien wobbles off of turn 2, really unsettles that middle lane. And look at all that ground they lost just by that mere moment. And Warren Kyle Keith will jump up to the front of that second lane in hopes of trying to lead them up front. And that third lane, you see more cars in it now. They've got Matthew Perusini leading that charge. And all that does hurt that middle lane, especially with the amount of numbers on the inside lane overall. And you can see this they're trying to make that third lane work, but there's just not enough momentum. We have not really seen that third lane get all the way up there. It's been tough for the second lane to get up there. They've done it on a few occasions, but it has not been easy. As that's the view from Warren Kyle Keith's rear bumper. A nose full of Steven Stempien as he is absolutely trying his very best to push Stempien up, or push Keith up there to try and challenge and fight for this race lead. And right here on this part of the racetrack where Stempien is pushing, that's one of the more peculiar spots on the racetrack to be bumper to bumper like that. The tri-oval has less banking than everywhere else on the racetrack, and it could really unsettle the race car. It could maybe drift off a little bit and possibly cause you to spin. But look at that big run that they got off of turn 2. Really good pushes there from those 3 cars at the front. And it gets Warren Kalkeith and Steven Stempien clear for the time being, but they don't decide to move down. That could allow the inside to mount a charge. Look at that run on the outside by Jason Anderson, and David Duran nearly scraping the outside wall from that big of a run. They get behind Porter's. Harlow jumps down to the middle, as it looks like Keith and Stempien are trying to get everybody to abide by that high side. Now Porter sees the run through the middle. He'll peek down low. Keith goes down to put the block. So playing spoiled for any kind of outside lane charge. And now he's looking for the lead on the inside. He'll have the help from Harlow and Walden. Stempien peeks to the outside to lead the 24 out. That's Duran that'll follow him up to that 3rd lane, and Jason Anderson's machine, Stubblefield, a winner in Droppin' Hammah competition at Daytona in season number 1. He's up in this top 10 now. And you see Porter having to make decisions. You see the inside, sees the middle, sees the outside. Durand has been making some moves. He'll stick down to the bottom as Durand, really out of nowhere, has been having some really good speed. And now, just like that, we're 3 wide for the lead. First time all night long we see that 3rd lane really propel. And look how little cars remain on that inside lane as Stephen Harlow gets clear for the top spot. Stempien gets clear for 2nd for now. And you see Porter fighting back on the bottom. Back level with Harlow for the top spot. The push is going on. Nearly getting squirrely are a few of those cars on the outside lane. But this track is so wide. You can probably go 6 wide here and not feel all that tight in space. But it is Stephen Harlow that clips off yet another lap led. As we're about halfway through this fuel run in the opening run of this race. Still all 23 cars are in this lead draft. As you see, Duran now got stuck in the middle. And he's going to start falling through this pack. As there's the pushes from Walden and from Whittington to the back bumper of the 82 machine. And it's got Porter back out in front again. And just like that, that 3rd lane has gone away. And we're back to 2 wide racing, with Harlow leading that 2nd lane side by side for the 4th spot. And when you're leading the race like this, and you know that they're not committed to going single file, you have to keep your eyes in your mirror, looking back, making sure you can detect when a move could be made to your outside, especially if you know that the drivers that are behind you plan on working together. If they plan on working together, they could decide at any moment that we're going to get past this guy and try to take back control of the race lead, which they have done so. So we'll see how long they're willing to sit behind Porter. As you see, Lauren Vincent nearly had a moment there, just about entering the trial, nearly got up to the door of Steven Stempien. You see what that did for the inside lane's momentum, as now Stempien side by side for 2nd with Garrett Walden's machine, and maybe even have a chance at the race lead with help from Jason Anderson. There you see the push from Perusini to Anderson. Both lanes trying as hard as they can to give the help. is a tough one. And just like that, Stempien gets the momentum. He'll clear for the top spot. And Anderson will take the inside lane position to go for the top spot himself. Can he clear Stempien? I think he might have. He definitely is now. Porter's going to be helping that 92 machine with Garrett Wald. You see Pericini drop to the bottom, leaving Fulham to try and potentially help the 88 machine. So you see, nobody exactly committed to a specific strategy at this portion of the run, as we could see possibly drivers aim to try to go full or single file here, as only 6 cars now remain on that outside lane, and they're not being aggressive right now. As actually Jason Anderson will now leave the race lead. He'll jump up to the outside and just let everybody go. And remember what I talked about. This could be a measure for fuel. He's already led a few laps in this race, so he's definitely got those points in his bucket. So you see him immediately pull out, and how far back he went. Looking to maybe get in a situation where he could save some fuel. And being in this position like Porter is right now, you're burning the most fuel. Going full throttle with all that air in front of your nose versus everybody else who not only can go a little bit faster, but they don't have to do so with as much throttle trace out of their cars. But you see only 4 cars now remain on that outside, the immediate 3, and the gap back to Anderson. Brad Fulham, James Kunkel, and Justin Erb trying to lead that charge from the outside lane. And they have good speed, but clearly this is everybody on the inside just deciding we're going to calm down for a bit. We've had our fun, we've had our time, but there's still 100 laps left in this race. And at some point someone can and will make a mistake. And it could cost a couple of good race cars an opportunity of being able to run at the finish. See right there, a little bit of a drift up by Fulham. Hurts their momentum just a tad, as they're now the only 3 cars properly left up here. Now look how big of a run they do get down this back straightaway. Because they're not being held up by any checkups or trying to modulate their throttles, they're just trying to be as aggressive as they can to gain as many positions. And a lot of that could come down to that they're trying to place themselves in a decent spot for when they do have to make pit stops. Instead of trying to pit at the back end of this lead group, you try to pit as close as possible to the front. It could help you out. Because with this long line, if you split the laps in which you pit, you could end up splitting this pack up. And we've seen that some packs sometimes just push better than others. If you can at least put yourself in the spot to be with that lead pack, whoever's in it, it gives you the best opportunity in the next run. On our way now to complete our 26th lap of the race. And you see a few more cars to have jumped up there to the outside now. That's Jason Anderson that has jumped up there. So is Richard Swavely. He moves up there, I think a little bit further back. That's the 10 car that decided to jump up. That's Jamal Pugh. As by being able to resist as long as they have, and stay as far up as the front as they've been able to do for those laps, it has invited drivers to say, hey, maybe there's still something left in that outside. And sure enough, look at the big run they got down the back straightaway. They get 2 cars, maybe 3 clear. And it'll be more than that because Fulham goes to the inside. Kunkel tries to go towards the front. Anderson will take it 3 wide through the middle. Everybody just kind of following through as all 6 of them nearly got to the front. And with that level of ease, this is definitely now becoming about fuel in this run of just trying to make sure that you can get as many more laps as you can. They're probably trying to reach a certain number. And this being our first time with this setup, with this combination, there is some genuine unknowns regarding how far they can make it. But we do know we're in the general vicinity of it soon enough. Within about the next 10 or so laps, we'll probably find out. I see a bit of a gap form between 2nd and 3rd, which is being closed up from 3rd to 4th. Kind of stringing out that portion of the top 5, as it was the James Kunkel machine that was trying to side draft and hang on that outside lane. See where they're back, that's Charles Stevens. Trying to make use of that outside lane. There's the onboard look from that 10 machine, as he could get a pretty solid run here. See if he thinks about making the move. Answer will be no. And you see what that did to that middle lane. Kunkel now getting shuffled back. Erb now leads that group, and it is really strung out. All 23 cars still remain in this lead draft. You see Stevens kind of slice his way to the inside there. He'll claim a spot on that inside lane. Kunkel at this point possibly trying to do the same. He's got help from behind now. That's Stephen Harlow's 6th machine. And now Steven Stempion's 88 jumps up there as well. So they're not quite done trying to make that 2nd lane work. But here's the front pair of Erb and Swavely. They clear for the top spot. They'll move down now, just as Kunkel gets his help. And there's that progressive patriotic 12. Side by side with Brad Fulham. You see the gap from ahead of Anderson. But that 12 is going quick. He's got some quick cars behind him, making him go that way. They clear down to the bottom and immediately move there. Leaves out Stempion and Durand. Looks like Stempion does find a hole. And that leaves Durand as the only car left stranded on that outside lane for the time being. So all single file here now on lap 32 of Talladega. Moments away from potential green flag pit stops. And you're going to see a good portion of this field possibly take 4 tires, since you're going to be waiting on the fuel anyways at the stop. This pit road exit, very different to Daytona's in the fact that if you look at the apron right around here in turns 3 and 4, it's the same in 1 and 2. You have a little bit of banking as you near that double yellow line. At Daytona, it's relatively flat, and you have to stay below it. On iRacing, in real life, you don't. But on the sim and in real life at Talladega, you have to stay below that double yellow line all the way to the exit of turn 2. But that banking on the apron helps immensely carry more speed and let the car feel less treacherous, if you will, in the process of doing so. And there's drivers that struggle with using that little lane. They straddle between that banked piece of apron and the lesser banked piece of apron. And that could cause these sensitive next-gen cars to go for a spin. As you see how strung out this lead pack has quickly gotten. It's just very loose. Nobody's lost the draft. The entire group is together, but it is strung out. You see this gap from Stempien back to Jason Anderson. That's about half a second. Then you look a bit further back. Another gap right behind Stubblefield back to Dana Shepard, which is currently being closed. It was at about half a second as well. As there's Harlow now making a move. Thought about making one. He's got his teammate Stempien behind. But you see right here, this might not be so helpful to the cars further back behind Jamal Pugh. That's about 3 cars covering a second. And that could really spell trouble for them if they are trying to slow down and save some fuel. Ahead of this pit stop, it could cost them being in this front group. As there's the 6 once again trying to make something happen. But nothing yet. And that brief moment does bunch them up a little bit more than they were that previous lap. Still no takers on for pit road yet. There they go. They peek to the outside again. They could be looking for clean air, but they haven't exactly been pushing. But they could be doing that to make sure they have enough temperature in their cars in case they did want to push. Here's the onboard look from Harlow. You might be looking at that dash and thinking to yourself, well, he's got about 200 and 210. Surely he's fine. That's a static figure. It won't actually show you, at least myself and you, the audience, if you were to view this on your own iRacing accounts, it won't tell you the outright number that he's facing. So, albeit it shows that number, that's not exactly what he's facing inside that 6 car. So that's important to remember if he does run hot at any point in tonight's race. But you see the pack got strung back together. They're still single file, but a lot closer now. As we're moments away from green flag pit stops and what has seen no yellow flags yet. Very similar to Daytona. We had this long run to commence the race. The first caution flew after the first sets of pit stops when trouble exiting the pit lane for Brad Fulham put us under the first yellow flag of the season. The 19 car runs 20th at the moment. But that goes to show how difficult stopping under green is here at the super speedways, and that's just exiting. When you pit, depending how big of a group you're pitting with, when you brake, how far apart you get, how close to the racing surface you're braking, becomes a big topic of conversation. You could have drivers running into one another, big crashes happening entering pit road. We see it all the time. So you have to be careful and know who you're strategizing with ahead of these pit stops. That way you can end up in a good spot and not get into each other's way. Top 4, top 5 or so, getting a bit of a gap off of turn 4. No indication towards pit road yet. And we come around to complete now a 38th lap. So as I mentioned, this is a bit of an unknown. The amount of laps that they can go exactly, that is, on a full tank of fuel. With the normal next-gen car with no changes and no adaptations to it, you can go approximately 41. You could go about 41 laps on fuel, but with these changes and what they do to the throttle trace, to the lap times that are being ran, the drag, all those sorts of things do get changed. So inside their race car, they probably have a better idea than we do as to when they plan on turning that hard left and hard braking zone. But it won't be yet. So if we keep circling around like this, it will turn into a fuel mileage gain because you eliminate one of those pit stops, which could be why we saw drivers slowing down earlier. If you ring up your calculators and divvy up this race into thirds, that number, it gives you about 41, 42 laps. And you definitely feel like you're going to get some caution laps in the second half of this race, surely. But if you eliminate an entire pit stop from this race, that's about 40 seconds you're saving yourself between now and the checkered flag. I think everybody will take that and do whatever they can to make that happen. So we'll see if any calls are made down pit road as the pack kind of stretches out a bit once again. But no calls being made as we now take lap number 40. And now it's a real possibility that these drivers are in save mode. The lap times are down to 51 flats. Earlier they were running about 50.8, 50.7, so it's not by much. But they are running a little bit slower, trying to save some fuel, trying to get further into this race. And if they can get it to lap 41 next lap, there's a good chance that just two more pit stops, or excuse me, one more pit stop after this race could just about do it. And there's a trip down pit road. That's the Droppin the Hammah team that'll make the trip down pit lane. Remember, they were the aggressors. Jaden Porter will join them on the lane. A good portion of this field will stay out, kind of splitting up the Droppin the Hammah team, in fact, with Harlow and Stempian staying out. It's about a third of the field that's on their way in. Looks like Kunkel overshot his pit stall by a good margin. Has to back up multiple stalls. That's going to hurt his chances of staying on the lead lap and staying with this group. As looks like possibly a penalty here for Jaden Porter. Has to wait and wait and wait. And now he'll exit. As there's the next group coming in here on lap number 41. The biggest group by far. You see the 94 of Jesse Whittington with a hot entry, but he might have made it in good. That leaves Kip Beasley, Charles Van Schaik, and Brandon Banks out for a 42nd lap in this race. Gotta like the position they're in on their strategy. They went the furthest of all the stoppers. As you see Walden back up, Dana Shepard. This is their stall. As the pit stop's getting complete here, now going underway. A few of those cars may get left behind or stranded towards the back end of this group. Shepard certainly. As there you see that group of cars that made it out together. They're already up to speed. Now it's up to the rest of these cars to get up to speed. You see Jaden Porter got left behind after having to sit back and wait. Not sure if there was a penalty, as here's Kip Beasley, Brandon Banks that have made their way in. But they see this group of about 7 well ahead of Charles Stevens, who gets swallowed by that second group. But clearly the best execution goes right here to this 5-car group. This one, that is, the 6-car group of Steven Stempian, Stephen Harlow, Jason Anderson, Jesse Whittington, Matthew Parasini, and Jamal Pugh. I think Justin Erb is now within a second. He was just enough up to speed and now in the draft of your leaders that he'll close this gap. And now remember, they pitted a lap earlier than these cars, so there's a good chance that he'll want to sit here and maybe try and save some fuel. And indeed so, you hear him lifting. They'll just kind of tuck right in and stay in line. But we made it through those green flag pit stops with little chaos. See a little bit further back, there's Kip Beasley. He's got his 3 buddies that pitted with him on that same lap. Actually, Charles Van Schaik, a little bit further back here, gets lost some time on pit road. He's on the back of what this could be 5-car train. as you see Fulham trying to keep that 8 machine or the 23 machine alive, but they both could end up losing the draft if they're not careful. It appears as though they'll stay intact. The big losers on this pit stop: Jaden Porter, Kevin Roy, Dana Shepard, and James Kunkel. You see them all right there, just a little bit apart, and they're not super far apart, I must say. Certainly, if you're already this far back, if you back up to one another and just tag along to try and avoid going as slow as they are, that would probably be a really good idea. The lead group right now is running 51 6s. These guys by themselves running 55 0s, 55 1s. I would certainly try to pick up a few cars just to go faster, especially because Kevin Roy is so close to Porter. Shepard could say the same for Kunkel, only about a second and a half. You're just going to sit around losing time if you don't try to back up and work together here. At this point, you just try to stay as close as possible to buy yourself time. You don't want to go a lap down in this race and end up especially having to fight one another. And that could be what we're facing. You see the single file train at the front, now led by Steven Stempian, consisting of 14 cars back to Charles Stevens. Then you have the second group of 5, led by Garrett Walden, back to Brad Fulham's machine. It looks like Porter, I guess he heard me, because now he's dropping back a little bit, and Kevin Roy is going to be up to those two. They'll go a little bit quicker together, not quite as quick as the pack, but they'll be quicker than one car. But certainly they probably would have hoped if they could have Kunkel and Shepard on their side to deal it a lot better than what they have been dealt with after the green flag pit stops. Well, here on lap number 46 from Talladega Superspeedway, after completion of green flag pit stops, we'll take a side-by-side break, but you won't miss the action here on the KBueno Racing Network.
Welcome to the Thousand Islands Cruette in Clayton, New York. We're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come in for a tasting and our helpful and knowledgeable staff will help you find the perfect olive oils or vinegars to add that perfect touch to your next meal. We have monthly specials and sales, as well as new pairings and recipes, so there's always something new to try when you visit. The Thousand Islands Cruette on James Street in Clayton. And don't forget, hey, no touchy the tankies.
It's the thirstiest time of the year. I have just one query.
Want a Sprite cranberry?
The answer is clear. It's the thirstiest time of the year. Sprite, let's go.
Hey, Francisco, what's up? Yo, what's up, Kenneth? What's going on, man? How are you? Good. How you been? What you got in the bag, man?
I got a panini, I have a hoagie, I got it all through the Wall Rewards app.
You can order it all through the app?
You can order it all through the app.
I can order it all through the app. The world is my oyster! By placing your order on the Wawa app, you can pick up at any time with ultimate satisfaction. Gotta have a Wawa.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
It's good.
It's good, man. How'd you get it?
I got it all through the Wawa Rewards app.
All through the app?
All through the app.
All through the app. The world is my oyster. On the Wawa app, you can get all of your favorites and pick up at any time. Gotta have a Wawa.
Welcome back to the Talladega Super Speedway. We're about to complete lap number 50. You saw the different moves being made on this particular run. Stubblefield and Van Schaik, they blew past the entire lead pack and easily have driven up towards the front and almost away from the lead pack. They still have a little bit of draft off of those two. They're still within a second easily. You see Jason Anderson, he'd been peeking out for a few laps trying to get going as well, and I think this goes to show what the different mindsets are of some of these drivers. Clearly some of the field thinks they're not going to make it anyway, so they're just going to try and go full throttle as much as they can, counting on the fact that they're going to have to stop again. But Stephen Harlow and a good portion of the field, they're thinking, hold on a minute, if we save a little bit more fuel than we did that first run, there's only one more pit stop left for us in this race, and that's ultimately the biggest factor in this race. You see them trying to get close here, and I think Stubblefield and Anderson and the likes of them have realized this. Their pace has slowed down a lot. Right now they're running on the last lap 54-second lap times. At the cross the start finish line this time, Timothy Stubblefield, who is the race leader, ran a 53.6. They were running 50.8s, if you recall, not too long ago. So clearly backing down 2 seconds is a planned effort to try and save some of that fuel, which could be helpful towards this two-car group back here of Porter and Roy, and this other two-car group of Shepard and Kunkel. They're running essentially the same lap times, if not slightly faster than your lead pack. Yes, they're burning more fuel, but at this point, they're just hoping for a caution flag at any point in the race. Yes, they'll end up having to make an extra pit stop, but that probably won't be the case until, let's say, 10 to go in the race. So as long as the caution flag comes out before they have to make that extra pit stop, they'll take it. They'll be bunched back up with the field. Everybody else, on the other hand, is probably going to have to worry about backing this pace down. So now these 19 cars that are running at a reduced pace and trying to conserve. Here's the onboard from Jason Anderson, and then look at the speed right there on the bottom right, hovering just in the mid-170s. And see the gap form ahead to Charles Van Schaik, and it is about stretching it as much as possible. If you can do the harder work now, you don't have to save nearly as much in that final run, which you know that you're going to have to go full throttle at some point to try and win that race. So definitely smart by most of the pack to try and get this hard conserve out of the way now rather than later. But you also don't want to lose touch with the lead draft. The good thing is, if those two cars up ahead of Stubblefield and Van Schaik drive away, well, they won't drive away forever. All it will take is whoever's leading this group to go full throttle to do so, though I don't think anybody who's leading that group wants to go full throttle at the same time. Well, all it takes is one lap of doing so, and you'll get caught back up easily, especially as long as you're within the draft of one of those cars. But 43.8s and 54 3s and 54 8s are what we're seeing on that last lap. The difference between your top two and the rest of the pack, this lap could be a little bit more equal. But you can definitely tell that the reduced pace, and you could definitely see it with your eyes, just how different of a race it's being ran in this second stint. And in our YouTube chat, Steven Stempion's biggest fan, his father, I don't think you jinxed him. He's definitely a little bit further back here, saving some fuel, much like most of the field is, just trying to get in a good spot. The further back you are in a pack like this, you have a better chance of saving fuel. You get less air to your car. So there's less resistance. You can hold it down with less throttle and keep up the speed. And he's got a good friend behind him, Brandon Banks, a couple of teammates. A little bit further up in Stephen Harlow. A little bit further back, actually. Stephen Harlow a little bit further back there. But they're biding their time. It's about saving the fuel now and making sure that you can get on one more pit stop to the end of the race. And that's going to matter. We saw that most of the field went 40 to 42 laps on that opening run. And they didn't do this level of saving. We did not see lap times go this low around the super speedway. So the fact that they're going this slow could be indicative of the fact that they can perhaps push it closer to 45 laps if they really do this for most of the following run. Could potentially see the pit stops coming around lap 95, which, if you do the math with the top right of your or top left of your screen, that puts us at about 40 laps to go, which they did easily without much aggressive saving. So it's gonna be one to watch as we're inching our way towards the halfway portion in this race. And you see a couple of cars simultaneously have jumped up to that second lane, led by the 20 of Justin Erb. I think he's decided he's not going to save anymore. Neither has Richard Swavely, Warren Kyle Keith, and Daniel Holdcroft. They kind of planted the throttle. Now they're going to go to the top spot and try and control this race. And I've seen this movie before. There'll be drivers that do this with the idea of taking the race lead. They'll drop back down to the bottom or something, and then play the game that they've been doing it further back, just this time from the front of the field. A positioning matters when it comes to entering pit road. We saw that during the last green flag pit stop cycle. So this lap, the lap that they accelerated on, maybe won't be the best tell of the lap times they plan on running. I think lap 58 would be more indicative of what their plan is, since this lap will be faster with having to pass all those cars. This group further back here has found themselves, so now they're a 4-car pack, and I think they've found themselves together to maybe try that fuel saving idea. It's that even though they're this far back, they certainly won't risk going a lap down together, and they could possibly try to help themselves get to the end of the race on fuel and not have to pit again. So fuel strategy is all up and down this field, and evident here as there's about 1 second or so separating these strings of cars. In the middle portion of this pack, after the leaders took over the top spot, you see Stempien just ahead. It's now almost 1 second from him to Kip Easley. He's trying to do his best to keep up with this front group. And you see Anderson back trying to help the 88 machine. Last lap update on your race leaders was a 51.2, so not quite like the fastest we have seen, but certainly more in that general direction than what we had been seeing. Here's the onboard look from Stempien as he sits about 1.1 seconds behind the 11th place car of Kip Easley. And at this far back, whilst you get a draft, it's not super effective. And without the speed boost, if you will, it's not helpful. And I think he lost his immediate help because there goes Jason Anderson, who dropped towards the back of this group. And that makes this a lot more interesting between Easley and Stempien, 1.2 seconds. And that's with Easley kind of hanging off of those cars in front. You see him trying to, I think, stick with that 10-car pack, but at the same time manage his fuel numbers. But you could definitely tell these leaders got up there and they're running quicker lap times. They ran 51.4 that previous lap. So whilst it's not the complete outright pace that these cars have been capable of producing in a pack, it's a little bit below that level, possibly due to the fact that they've reached their number. They feel confident that they can get to the lap that they feel will get them enough fuel to get to the end of the race. And at the cross the start finish line, that time quicker, 50.9s for your top runners. For Steven Stempien and the leaders of this second group, 51.2. They're now over 1.5 seconds off that lead group and have officially lost that draft. Possibly this group still a little bit more on the erring caution side of fuel saving. You see them swap cars from time to time in different spots of the line in hopes of just trying to save fuel in a different position, seeing if that plays a big role. And the only car inside this leading group of 11 that pitted as late as they did, or actually, excuse me, two of them, is this 23 of Charles Van Schaik and 11th place Kip Easley. They pitted the last of anybody on that last green flag cycle. So they still sit with an opportunity to still stretch it beyond anything that these other leaders have done on this run. Still a long ways yet to go, as at the completion of the following lap will mark the official halfway point in tonight's race. And while we have this chance, let's go crank it up here on the KBueno Racing Network. And you saw trouble there for a moment from that second group. That's Lauren Vincent that went sliding through the grass. He saves it. Looks like Stephen Harlow may have gotten a piece of it as well, because he's lost touch with that lead group, and what was already troublesome from the fact that they lost the lead draft, now 3 seconds behind, they start losing even more cars. As that was an indication of our first anything of troubles. Here's the look from it. Looks like Harlow peeked to the inside of that 07. Great save by Vincent in the grass through pit road. Is going to get that black flag cleared, I would think. There's the checkups up ahead. He kind of holds his line relative to Walden, but Harlow's just there and there enough. And unfortunate for those two, they now lose the draft, and they're a good bit ways apart. They'll fall to the clutches eventually of this 4-car group that is further back here, led by Jaden Porter. As they're still riding around together, not putting quite as fast lap times as the lead pack, but they've certainly done a good job of managing what they can in regards to fuel, in regards to the gaps themselves, so that they can maybe not have to go a lap down in this race. They still stand a chance, but as the laps tick on, that becomes just a little bit more difficult in the event that they may end up facing going a lap down. You see the gap there between the two lines? Our 11-car lead group, followed by the 6 cars that trail Steven Stempien. And approaching 58 laps to go at the cross of the start-finish line. Again, that topic of fuel becomes a question. How safe, how confident are these drivers in that they've reached their numbers, they know which lap they have to pit on, and that now it's about reaching it. We saw that they were able to go 42 at the max on that previous stint. And while there was some saving, it wasn't quite as hard saving as they were doing here. You see Warren drop another spot in hopes of getting a little bit better economy right around here. He'll let Swavely go by for second. And this really becomes a chess match at this stage of the race. And it's all about how much can you manage that right foot. How gingerly you can treat it, how soft you can treat it, how effective you can be in and out of pit road. We saw a lot of those packs get strung out on pit road. And that's something that they're going to have to face about 15 laps from now. Remember, 42 is the number to surely get to yourself to the scheduled distance of the race. And I wouldn't doubt it if somebody pits with 44, 45 laps to go, knowing they can't get to the end, but praying on some kind of caution flag to bail them out. And just hoping that it could change their luck in this race. It's just one we're going to have to yet to see. As the laps continue to wind down. But it remains just an herb at the front of this field. Some great paint schemes through this field. See right there, that Wendy's machine, Brad Fulham, he's been running over the past couple of weeks. Taco Bell machine just behind him with Jason Anderson's, a little bit of a fast food rivalry there. As Fulham moves up high to tuck back in behind Stempien a little bit further back. I might just get myself a Frosty when this is all said and done. Looking at those food cars always makes me hungry. Especially when I'm on a show like this. I've had a water with me to try and help out with the talking. I might want to get myself a Pepsi like Warren Keith has on his car. And you see some patriotic paint schemes, including that Pepsi machine of Warren Keith. The 12 of James Kunkel has another one of those. As you see further back, there's the 07 and 6 of Lauren Vincent and Steve Harlow. They found themselves with this 4-car group now to make do of their situation. They're running 51 zeros, which is only about a tenth or two slower than the lead group. So they're doing a good job of running where they are and being able to manage. They're about 25 seconds off the lead, so they're almost half a lap down. If they can sustain that up until the next stops, then, well, then they just might be okay on not getting lapped if they don't face any issues like they did on the first set of stops. But there you see that patriotic progressive machine. That's probably one of the best ones we have out here this week. Is by this number 12. Progressive going to victory lane earlier today in the NASCAR Cup Series All-Star race at the hands of Denny Hamlin. Kunkel perhaps trying to turn that around and take Progressive colors to victory lane tonight here from the Talladega Super Speedway. And Super Speedway-esque racing isn't quite over even into 2 weeks from now at Michigan. We'll have some package changes surely that the admins will advise us on throughout the week. Perhaps some horsepower increase, maybe even some weight reduction changes. That'll be all left to find out. But all in the hopes, of course, of trying something different with those changes that iRacing allowed with the balanced performance updates, where you can change the horsepower output. You've always been able to decrease horsepower or increase weight, but one of the things you've been able to do since the newer updates is the opposite. You've been able to increase horsepower and decrease weight to make them go faster, corner better. We've seen that already at play in the All-Star race, the Charlotte and Kansas races with just the horsepower. Tonight's the first time we're seeing weight reduction being implemented since it was added more recently. We'll see what this can mean for the next handful of races. And if that means Michigan could perhaps be less quite pack racy as it does, which it hasn't ever since the next gen cars got their update in 2025, but they still have that tendency in it to race kind of like a super speedway, especially for the first half of their runs. Maybe try to mitigate that a little bit more. 51 laps to go at the cross of the start finish line. Now some of you may be asking, where is Kenneth Bueno? We have some big news on Kenneth and what's in store for us tomorrow night. Be sure to join us on the KBueno Racing Network Truck Series Season 2 finale from the Homestead Miami Speedway. It's going to be a fun one with myself and Nate on the call for that one, and some really big news that we've been wanting to share, that Kenneth has been wanting to share, and we'll get that squared away tomorrow night. So if you want to see what's in store for the KBueno Racing Network and Kenneth himself, be sure to join us tomorrow night's broadcast and enjoy some good truck racing while you're at it. As we'll now take 50 laps to go here at Talladega, now less than 10 laps away perhaps from these final fuel stops being made. And these leaders have not backed it down since taking the race lead. Justin Erb, Richard Swavely, they're still running 50.9s whilst leading this group. See Justin Erb, he's already led 29 going on 30 laps, perhaps trying to contend for the most laps led. Leading that second group now is Charles Stevens. He sits in 12th, 6 seconds behind the race leaders. They're running approximately 0.2 a lap slower, and they've been swapping cars around more frequently. As there's Steven Stemping, who's led us handful of laps, not as many, only 4. But he sits in this group hoping that he can get back attached to that lead group. And then that third group that had the trouble on pit road, they've also been swapping cars in hopes of just trying to help themselves with their fuel situations. This could be a group that we'll see pit here soon as well, given the fact that they've been running slower, burning more of that fuel. Never really got to hard save like a lot of that lead pack did when they were together. They're approaching now their 38th lap of their stint. So if they are able to go about 5 more, that'll put them at 43 laps to go with 43 laps on this stint. It is going to be tight. And remember, they hard saved for about 20 of those laps. About 20. The second 20, the last handful of laps, they stopped saving. So that's important to note. when determining how much fuel do they have, how much can they save, and if they have to save more, how much more can they keep in that tank available in that final stretch of the race. And remember that everybody in this group pitted at the same lap. It was only a 3 lap window, which the field came down pit road. 2 drivers in this lead group, Charles Van Schaik, Kip Easley, pitted approximately 1 lap later than everybody else. Certain drivers in this group pitted a little bit earlier than most of the group. Justin Erb, Richard Swavely, Warren Kyle Keith, Daniel Holdcroft, those 4 pitted 39 laps ago. You can include the David Duran machine in that strategy. 38 laps ago was Timothy Stubblefield, Jamal Pugh, Jesse Whittington, Matthew Perusini, and that's when you toss in Kip Easley and Van Schaik's strategy calls. So those laps will make a difference in the closing stages of this race and when determining what lap they choose to pit. Pass of the pit road again, no takers yet, but soon enough pit road is going to be busy with potentially, final pit stops of this race for the front 11. And this group has really lost time over the last handful of laps. They're now over a second slower than the lead group and sit almost 10 seconds off the race leaders. And we saw this kind of story play out in the KBueno Racing Truck Series when we were here at Talladega a few weeks ago. Green flag run to start the event. A lot of green flag action, different strategies, different packs. And it was coming down to fuel mileage, and in the closing laps of the race, there was controversy over when the yellow flag was waving, and here's some pit stops, and it's split strategies by this pack. Not everybody from that lead group is in. Swavely, Holdcroft, Erb, Keith, you saw a lot of those being some of those that was running closer to the front, burning more fuel. They pit here with 44 laps to go, or 45 at the time in which they pit. They went about 41 laps on their stint and out-remain this 4-car group. And very notably, there's Kip Easley and Charles Van Schaik. They're on their 40th lap of the stint right now. If they can go 2 more laps, you have to like their chances of not coming back down again. In fact, the whole 4-car group will remain out. There's the secondary group led by Charles Stevens. They now clipped their way into the top 10. They're now 8.5 seconds off this lead group, which has backed it down. On that lap, they ran 52.3, so they slowed down a good bit. They're probably going to lose out in relation to the big group, which isn't all that big anymore. You see it split in between 4 cars as well. There's Justin Erb leading Warren Kyle Keith, leading Timothy Stubblefield, leading Dayton Duran. And if they were short by that much, they're going to have to save more fuel on this run. And not only that, they're not as together right now. You see Holdcroft and Swavely, they're about 1.5 back. That could help out that lead group, but not by much. Jamal Pugh, mistakes on pit road. He's back there alone by himself. And this is big right here to begin their 43rd lap of the stint. Is Jesse Whittington, Matthew Perusini, Kip Easley, Charles Van Schaik begin their 42nd lap of their stint. So this could be the card dealt correctly and played right by this 4-car group. to give them the best chance possible of winning this race. As there's the Garrett Walden group, they've also managed to go longer. They dropped back. Remember, they lost more time to try and save some additional fuel. That's why they fell so far behind from that 11 car pack originally. And no dice, no trip down pit lane yet, so really great fuel mileage that this Quattret is getting. Now leading this race. They weren't as aggressive to get to the front, as here's some stops now. There's Jason Anderson, Banks, Stempian, Walden, Fulham all in. And here's the merge as they've picked up the 10 car of Pew. And Van Schaik is going to pit by himself here. Not sure that that's a good move. You normally don't ever want to pit by yourself here at the Super Speedway. But he'll pit here by himself with 40 laps to go. Leaving just your top 3 out there. As here's the Justin Erb group. You see the gap they have back to Banks as they merge together on the back straightaway. Kip Beasley and them, Charles Van Schaik, or Chuck Stevens. They're going to kind of merge together here. This will give them a decent chance of being able to save fuel if they have to. This group right here. And they might potentially be able to run down this 4-car group, which could have to do a little bit more saving with how much earlier they pitted. As now the 3-car lead draft is into the lane. Jesse Whittington, Matthew Pericini, Kip Beasley in here, approaching 39 laps to go. Really great stint by those guys. And Whittington slid through his stall. He's going to have to back up. And with a 3-car group like that, it is extremely delicate, because losing just 1 car could extremely hamper their chances of winning. There goes Pericini. Whittington is still sitting there. And Easy will exit the lane as well. And pit road penalty, in fact, for Jesse Whittington. Absolutely brutal for their chance to try and win. So they lose 1 of 3 cars. They're not even together exiting the lane. And here comes Justin Erb. They're going to pick up one of these lap cars. I believe that's Dana Shepard. And this will be the fight for the race lead. Remember, 5 laps difference in terms of the pit stop between this group led by Justin Erb and Pericini and Kip Beasley. You definitely feel like Beasley and Pericini can make it to the end even with minimal saving. This other group, with how much they saved in that first stint, still got some work left to do. I think they don't mind them getting out in front. They actually would prefer it. Go out there, burn that fuel. We'll stay back here, save, and let you guys do all that fuel burning before we can go out there and kind of force the issue. And that leaves Timothy Stubblefield out. And a little bit further back, there's the group from Brandon Banks, who runs in 9th. And this group pitted 4 laps ago, so they're a little bit more on the edge of being able to make it or not. It'll be interesting to see. Here's a 3-car group led by Stephen Harlow, Jaden Porter, Lauren Vincent. You can go back about 9 seconds to James Kunkel and Kevin Roy. And then stray cars of Whittington and Van Schaik, they found each other after their pit road woes. I think Van Schaik may have had a pit road issue as well, because he pitted by himself, but he fell all the way back here to Jesse Whittington, who had a pit road speeding penalty. So those two now going to work together to stay ahead of this lead group, as the only car in this race to be a lap down is in this lead group, the 44 of Dana Shepard. So if the caution were to come out now, it would put everybody back on the lead lap and maybe end the fuel conversation altogether. So now that we're single file here, we're going to get a good tell on this lap what kind of lap times the leaders are running. Remember, the front four or so, pretty questionable how much fuel they have in their tank, how much more they can even go, as they ran 51.2. Again, not as fast as we've seen them be able to run, but they're also not exactly looking for outright speed. But as they lead this group, it's just going to make it more difficult for them to have enough fuel in the tank to get to the end, unlike the 96 and 8, who sit in a pretty good spot right where they are. It'll be 35 laps to go across the start-finish line. We'll take another short break, but we'll be right here to the checkered flag after that. You're watching Droppin Hammah Cup Series action live from Talladega Superspeedway on the KBueno Racing Network.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome to the Thousand Islands Cruette in Clayton, New York. We're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Come in for a tasting, and our helpful and knowledgeable staff will help you find the perfect olive oils or vinegars to add that perfect touch to your next meal. We have monthly specials and sales, as well as new pairings and recipes, so there's always something new to try when you visit. The Thousand Islands Cruette on James Street in Clayton. And don't forget, hey, no touchy the tankies.
It's the thirstiest time of the year. Hey. Yeah. I have just one query.
Want a Sprite cranberry?
The answer is clear. It's the thirstiest time of the year. Sprite, let's go.
Let's go. What's up? Yo, what's up, Kenneth? How's it going, man? How are you? Good. How you been? What you got in the bag, man?
I got a panini, I have a hoagie, I got it all through the Wall Rewards app.
You can order it all through the app?
You can order it all through the app.
I can order it all through the app. The world is my oyster! By placing your order on the Wawa app, you can pick up at any time with ultimate satisfaction. Gotta have a Wawa.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to the Talladega Super Speedway, approaching 28 laps to go, and you see the lead pack has caught the 94 of Jesse Whittington, but has not elected to put him a lap down. Justin Erb playing high IQ strategy here with letting the 94 lead this line, not burning the most amount of fuel, gives him an opportunity to save, go a little bit of a slower pace, and they're catching up another group of cars up here as well. They're catching up to Kevin Roy's 22 machine and the 12 of James Kunkel. If they also elect to stay behind these group of cars, they're in even better position. They're a little bit further back. They can elect to save even more fuel, which they're certainly going to have to in this race. But I think you're seeing Kip Beasley and Matthew Perusini. They don't want to see that. They were happy to let this lead group go because they knew that they were short. If they get a chance to save, a good chance to save, it could be troublesome for their strategy. They're very likely good to go to the end of this race. And you see they're going to be aggressive here. They're actually all the way up to second. And you see he's to get very close, trying to side draft the race leader of Justin Erb. And now Kip Beasley will take over the race lead with Matthew Perusini. That's Dana Shepard, who's a lap down in this race. And a few other lap vehicles in the mix here as well to kind of spice things up, I guess. As now those two properly get into the top two, leaving that 20 car behind in third. And while all this is going on, slowly catching up to the race lead is that second group led by Jason Anderson, Steven Stempian, Jamal Pugh in 11th. They're now 2.5 seconds behind Timothy Stubblefield's 9 machine, who runs in 8th. So soon enough, this could be a chance for them to make some ground up as the racing up here is getting even more intense. Kip Beasley, Perusini have made their way towards the front of that group. The lap cars are also trying to race each other for position to try and become the first car a lap down, or better yet, even unlap themselves. They don't want to be a lap down this late in the going, knowing that there's been no cautions, and the fact that the leaders might just stay out altogether if one were to come out. They may not get the wave around opportunity, so they're trying to get ahead of these leaders, or be the first car lap down, which is exactly what Kunkel and Shepard are doing, and Van Schuyck could play a role on who gets to elect that. Same for the 94 of Jesse Whittington. And Kevin Roy a little bit further back there. So you see that gap now of 5 cars between the top 2 runners and third place proper. But now Kunkel is to the outside completely of Perusini here with 25 to go. And the gap is shrinking even more. It's now 1.5 seconds between those 2 packs. And Jason Anderson's definitely pedaling it. That lead group is not running as fast as it was doing so when they were single file, but you also have drivers in there that are more worried about saving fuel than this group. I think this group, they tried to run it backwards. Worry first about catching up, then saving some fuel once you're there. Otherwise, you have no chance at winning. And now the gap between Stubblefield and Anderson is under a second. Now they're in the draft. And you see the speed reflected as it clipped up over to 191 for a moment. So what a job by this crew of 6 to catch back up to this pack of race leaders after at one point being 10 seconds back. But can they save the fuel? As Kevin Roy got left out on all this, and there's Jason Anderson. He's not wasting any time. He's not looking to sit in line. But a few others are, as it's all about waiting until that very end portion of the race, trying to save as much fuel as possible. It is going to be one down to the nail. As everybody still tries to fight over the track position, trying to still save some fuel. You see the gap now forming up ahead of Warren Kyle Keith's machine. Almost half a second between himself and Justin Erb, who on his own right, you see he's not exactly right up to the back bumper of Van Schaik either. And a gap forming back up here again between Anderson and Anderson's 92 machine. Even though we're approaching 20 laps to go in this race, still a lot is yet to happen. A lot can happen between now and the end. As you see the lap cars playing a role in this fight for the lead as they're side by side for the top spot. Perusini, Kip Easley. Easley has the 12 machine of James Kunkel in front of him. Perusini being pushed by Whittington and Van Schaik will get clear of this group for the time being. Does not elect to go low yet. I think he's waiting on those helpers. You see Easley jump up to the top now. He quickly, swiftly move back down to the bottom, and just like that, well, I was going to say we were single file, but Kunkel decided to move up. And this is where the accidents can happen, because you have drivers in situations like this where they're trying to race to get back on the lead lap. No cautions have flown yet in this race. So if you can absolutely capture the free pass position on the first caution after a long run like this, it could get you back in position to win. Biggest key, you can't be a part of the caution if you want to get it. As you see, Kunkel ended up losing a position there to Shepard. These are all spots on around the edge of the top 20. As there's Kunkel once again jumping up high, and I think easily it was fine at the 12 doing that, if it can help him get further up to the front. We do have one car out of this race, the 19 of Brad Fulham, marked as 14 laps down at the time being. Not sure what happened to the 19 machine, but he's the first and so far only car out of this race. Jason Anderson has made the move up top. He's got help from Steven Stempion. And with 20 laps to go, this could be where the race gets interesting. You still have drivers sitting in this pack that probably don't have fuel for the checkered flag. But they're probably going to be banking on a yellow flag to save them here over the final course, the final stretches. So if there's anything that we do know is the 96 and 8 are in the best fuel situation, bar none. Second closest is maybe Anderson, Stempian, and the rest of that group, which kind of long back apart from those two, but they haven't really had an opportunity to save either. So whilst they can go possibly 42 laps, it's going to be tough to do so without any saving measures, as they've driven really aggressively to try to catch up to the lead group. They've got up here and they've been trying to make passes rather than sit in line, much like the rest of that pack has been doing. And that's with the fact that the cars that they're racing against do have to save fuel, otherwise they definitely can't make it. See Anderson, he's got a bit of front end damage actually, does that 92. That's not going to exactly help him lead a line. I'm not sure if Stepien knows that the 92 has some front end damage. But you see it right there on the backstretch, just how pushed in that nose is, kind of flattening out the front bumper. That does it no good down these long straightaways. Acts more like a parachute rather than a fast race car. But what can they do here in these final stretches? Pericini's still out in front and in control. See easily jump up to that second lane. Trying to use Kunkel to his aid. See a bit of a mix up there. Now easily ends up on the bottom. And now those are teammates, or rather not, those aren't teammates that are lined up, but Stempien found his way up into third behind Kip Easley. And what can they do to try to navigate their way past the lead group? You see them jump up to the outside, a big run by the 80 and the 88. They'll have help from Kunkel. And you can see just how much that front end damage is hurting that 92. Stempien was behind trying to help, but just not much you can do. Now Pericini sees the advances by by Easley. He jumps up. Kunkel will go to the outside 3 wide. And remember, half of these vehicles are lapped down in this race, trying to become unlapped. As there's Brandon Banks, he's going to get turned. What a save by Brandon Banks, and this is exactly what I was just about to start talking about. With the pack racing this aggressively, you can find yourself in a situation where you end up creating a caution and not being able to get your lap back at all. So Banks had been tucked in line this whole time. He decides to move up here. And then right there, a little bit of contact with Shepard, the lap car. Great save by Brandon Banks. Unfortunately, Banks loses the draft, so does Shepard in front of him. A double whammy. As that does kind of split the pack up again after being united. Now 6 lead lap cars remain in this group, last of them being Jason Anderson's stricken machine. Kip Easley now leads this race with Steven Stempien behind Matthew Pericini. David Duran finds himself in 4th. And Garrett Walden, who now falls back to 6th spot. And David Duran is the only car in this new lead group that is still very much on the outside looking in on fuel. He pitted what will be 31 laps ago at the cross of the start finish line. His fuel situation is very, very much still questionable. Everybody else, it really could come down to how much they saved. And especially Steven Stempien, who pitted 28 laps ago. Jason Anderson, who pitted 28 laps ago. And same for Garrett Walden. Kip Easley and Pericini, 26 laps ago. Those 2 laps could be very critical in the closing stages. There's the gap back to Warren, Kyle Keith. And I don't think this is a group that's going to make too much inroads. They could, but if they do, it'll come at the cost of being able to get to the checkered flag on fuel. That's for sure. Everybody in this group pitted 31 laps ago. They're in the same situation as Duran, and now that Warren Keith is again leading the line, it's not going to help him do any better. And now 13 laps to go at the start-finish line. Battle for the race lead once again. Kip Beasley's now to the inside of Perusini, as Perusini's trying to work with Whittington and the 12 machine of Kunkel. And these lap cars, they're going to play a role. They always do in a situation like this. They don't want to be a lap down. They know a caution could put them back on the lead lap, and even with restarting at the back, they have a chance to win. As look at that block by Whittington. Oh, and there's contact. Kunkel spins the 94, the 96. Kip easily gets into it. A big crash with all your leaders getting involved. And that started with the lap traffic making aggressive moves with each other, and it ultimately takes out the race leaders. No. Here's the replay. You see right there, Kunkel moves down. Whittington moves down. Perusini gets tagged by the 12 of Kunkel, and nowhere else to go for Easley and Stempian. The three cars that get damaged and wrecked out of that are the three leaders who had nothing to do with how this started. You don't like to see that. Nope. There's another look at it. We'll try and get the onboard views. Here's the onboard look from Steven Stempian. Kunkel moves down. Perusini tries to block. At the same time, Whittington was blocking Kunkel, but the decision to go up the track again by Kunkel just gets right into your race leader and turns him. Here's the onboard look from Kunkel's machine. Had a great save right here. Could have easily gotten turned again by the 94. But this goes back to what I was talking about. At least that caution came out once he was ahead of the leader, but he turned the race leader. And that's what we were discussing for multiple laps on end, is getting into the race leader as a lap car. You see this at the end of the races. You see the antsiness out of them just to be back into the race more than anything. And what it does more is ruin the race for others. Stempian with some pretty big damage on his front end. He's going to have to come down pit road. He's going to sacrifice all his track position to get back into it. Duran, though, he'll appreciate the yellow flag. And so will several others that weren't quite sure that they were going to get to the end. And the biggest cheerers of this yellow flag was that group of Jaden Porter, Stephen Harlow, and them that have spent essentially the entire race since the first green flag pit stop non-competitively, being well behind the race leaders and not even being able to get to the front of the pack. As all but one pitted, and it's the 92 of Jason Anderson, which I'm not too sure about, given the nose damage on his car. He might be able to follow drivers pretty well. I don't know how good that car will lead, given the damage to his race car. But we'll just have to see how good of a call it ends up being for Anderson. As now we'll get an opportunity and talk with one of the drivers who was involved in that incident now, as Stempian joins us in the booth. And Steven, you guys were up there racing for the lead. Fuel was being a concern. And then all of a sudden the crash happens right in front of you between lap cars. Take us through it.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what happened there. It's unfortunate, though. I mean, I fought pretty hard. I thought we had no chance of catching. I mean, I was pushing Jason like hell to catch that lead group, and we finally caught him. And you know, it was bound to happen. It is what it is. Luckily, I didn't get too much damage. I only got like 30 seconds left, so hopefully I'll be in contention, fight for the win, and see what happens.
And what about the fuel situation? We've seen fuel be the talk of the night. How close were you and some of those other cars that pitted on the same lap with you to being able to make it to the end?
I was gonna be good.
Wow.
So, I was good. I hit my fuel mark for when I wanted to pit on that last stint. That's why we were conserving and fell back so much. But I was gonna make it to the end if we went green. So.
That was going to be a close one for sure regarding the fuel. You put on a good drive. You got the damage fixed. You're going to be restarting here just inside the top 20. Good luck here, Steven.
I appreciate it, buddy. We'll see what happens. Give him hell.
And Steven Stempian looking to try and take over another drafting style racetrack win. Got the victory at the Echo Park Speedway in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. And now this race, much like it did a few weeks ago in the Truck Series, gets turned upside down after what is a completely green flag start. You just can't see these races go flag to flag anymore. Is the proper word. Reminds you of that 4-wide race in Season 6 at the O'Reilly Series cars. Went flag to flag and Tyler Murray got the victory. What a day that was for Murray VD Motorsports and the entire organization. But that was a flag-to-flag Talladega affair that we've come close to, but usually inside 15 laps to go, that's when it'll all break up. And what it now does, more than anything, no more fuel talk. Nobody, except maybe Jason Anderson, has to think about fuel. It's all about trying to win this race outright. You're good to go for overtimes. It'll be the 92 and 43 that'll lead us to the green with 9 laps remaining. Warren Kyle Keith, David Duran, Jamal Pugh in our top 5. Timothy Stubblefield, Stephen Harlow, Daniel Holdcroft, Justin Erb, Lauren Vincent make up our top 10. 20 cars sit on the lead lap for this restart. Kevin Roy 1 lap down, and Matthew Perosini, who was involved in that crash as the race leader, 22nd, 3 laps down in a heartbreaker. Into the United Rentals restart zone, it is Jason Anderson leading us back to the green flag as the inside all gets going really, really well. Walden struggles to get up to speed, as Harlow now closes up to the back bumper, trying to see if he can push the entire inside lane clear from the 43, who struggled to get going, but that outside lane is fighting back as best as it can. Pugh thinks about moving up. He will. Jamal Pugh now trying to fight for the top spot. There goes Jason Anderson with the block. It's going to be a tough one for this 92. With all that front end damage, he's going to have to think about being behind somebody to avoid dragging any line back. He's trying his best, but you can see just how squirrely his car gets as Walden for a moment peaks 3 wide, has to get back in line, and look at what that does to that middle lane. It checks everybody up as it gets squirrely from there on back 3 wide, almost gets into Stubblefield as the middle portion of the pack gets really hairy for a moment. Another close call as we hit with 8 laps to go now, and Warren Keith to the front of this field. There's Jaden Porter. Have not really said his name since the first run after that green flag pit stop mistake. He's back into the top 5. Came close to victory in that Truck Series race. Led on the final lap. Was side by side for the lead off turn 4. Was the winner last time out at Kansas. He's looking to go back to back with a super speedway victory of his own as he'll push Jamal Pugh out front. Not too far behind is Brandon Banks, the Daytona winner, creeping his way forwards, trying to settle himself back into a good spot here. As Porter, with the help from Duran, now gets to challenge Pugh on the outside for the race lead. As the inside lane bobbles, despite trying to get all the help that they can. He's now level with that 10 machine. A perfect 2 lanes exist here with 6 laps to go. That third lane, if it comes to fruition, could very well hurt that middle lane. So it's all about trying to get yourself in the right spot at the right time. And that's what Jaden Porter and Jamal Pugh are currently trying to do. Battling for the race lead late in the going at Talladega. Porter gets clear. Duran gets clear. He thinks about going low. He peeks to the bottom. He's to the inside of the 28. Porter will block though. As Jason Anderson has a bit of a moment, he gets sent down to the apron of the racetrack. He's out of this lead draft as they're almost 4 wide. And I believe he may be out of fuel. Let's take a quick look here at the 92. We saw he was close. And as they're pushing here, right about there, I think the engine may have actually expired on the 92 machine, and indeed it did. As we're now 3 wide. Oh, a bit squirrely. 4 wide now. But they hang on to it. Warren Kalkeith getting shuffled back. A couple cars nearly tagged the outside wall. The inside's getting strung out. As it is getting really hairy, but for the back end of this top 10. You could definitely smell another crash here. As Walden jumps up in front of the 94 of Whittington. Look how much momentum they're trying to carry through the middle. Harlow's trying to keep through the good one. There it is. The 94 makes contact into Herb. The big crash in turn number 2. That's going to put us under the second caution of the night. Stempien gets involved in it again. Oh, and late in it, the 32. Richard Swavely gets hit there at the end by Charles Stevens. And you just saw that coming. The aggression had been turned up to a completely different notch. And you saw the 6 of Stephen Harlow kind of peek his nose to the inside of the 94. And I don't think Whittington was exactly looking to leave him any space, and then the trouble ensues behind them. And at the center of it was Brandon Banks. As here's the view from the 5 machine. Nothing you could do in the position he was in. Here's a view from Kip Beasley. Two for 2 on the incidents is the 22 machine, or the 8 machine. As here's the view from Van Schaik. You can see the suspension broke with the way it wanted to go back up to the wall. And it got clipped again by Steven Stempien at the end. Here's the view from Stempien as he's behind his teammate trying to push him through the pack. Right there, gets hit from behind, and on the left side gets head on into the wall, gets hit in the tires as well. There's that secondary hit. But not too much damage on this 88. At least not like the first incident. A little bit less. He'll come in for damage repairs. So will a bunch of cars well into this top 10. There's Lauren Vincent, whose right front looks pretty destroyed. Brandon Banks' front end is destroyed as well. There's Richard Swavely, who exits after fixing his damage. And that leaves us with 10 cars that didn't pit under this caution. And Jaden Porter, who's at the front of the field in overtime, feeling some sense of deja vu, I'm sure. In this top 5, Jaden Porter, David Duran, Jamal Pugh, Daniel Holdcroft, Garrett Walden. The top 10, Jesse Whittington, Stephen Harlow, Timothy Stubblefield, Dana Shepard, Charles Stevens. Only one driver in the entirety of this top 10 has gone to victory lane in this series, and that's your current race leader in Jaden Porter. Everybody else in prime position for a first career victory. That's the kind of surprise that Talladega can give you. Even looking all the way back to Kevin Roy, I think Kip Easy has just exited the session. The damage perhaps too much on that 8 machine. So numerous drivers up here can claim a first career victory in overtime. Overtime rules will have 3 attempts at a finish under the green flag conditions. If we get to the white flag without another caution flag, the race is determined on that checkered flag, on that final lap. No cautions will come out after the white flag. It's whoever can cross the start-finish line first. If a yellow flag were to come out prior to the white flag, then we'll rack them up and do it again, up to 3 maximum attempts. If on that third and final attempt, a yellow flag were to wave at any point, the race is over based on the scoring at the time of that caution. What a night. We've been racing for almost 2 hours. Had a run of just over 100 laps long. Just over 110 laps long prior to the first yellow of the night. And now we've had a couple of quick yellows here in the backside of this race to put us into overtime. And you can see just, even with the few amount of cars that registered in tonight's race compared to what a traditional Talladega race may provide, even then the attrition is still very clear. There's Kevin Roy, who's in 11th. Banks just barely catching up now. Justin Erb, Lauren Vincent, Steven Stempion, and Charles Stevens, who I believe car is damaged to the point where he can't continue to go. Or at the very least, he's back down pit road here. As we're coming back to green, that leaves us with now 15 cars that are on the lead lap and will be caught up to this pack at the time of this green flag being waved. Attempt number 1 at a green-white checkered finish on the Talladega Superspeedway. It is Jaden Porter and David Duran that'll bring us into the restart zone. The long wait around into the United Rentals restart zone. There we go. Porter's on the gas. He's got help from Pugh, pushing him clear out there. Garrett Walden will tuck in to try and do his best. Try and help that inside lane go. Stephen Harlow not too far behind as well, as it looks like Swavely will try to aim for a third lane. But this small pack, this relatively small pack, it's going to be hard to form up any huge runs like we'd see otherwise. But we are getting closer and closer to taking the white flag. Harlow with that front end damage moves up high. He'll try to do the best as he can from the front of the field. Jamal Pugh all over the back bumper of Jaden Porter. Walden gets clear in third. He's got Whittington behind as they stack up on the bottom. We've made it to the white flag. 1 lap to go here from Talladega Super Speedway. What does anybody have for the 82 Ride the Dente Chevrolet? Walden looking to try and block for third. He's going all over the racetrack. In fact, they're going to crash. That's the 43 going around. Everybody crashes from there on back. Dana Shepard, who spent most of this race a lap down, now into the third spot. Jamal Pugh's going to back up. You see him left off that back bumper for the 82. What does he do now? What does Porter have learned from his last couple of races here? There's Jesse Whittington sitting in fourth. He's waiting in case something were to happen. Look at Pugh go high. He'll go down low. There's contact. Pugh is going to have to drag race this one all the way to the start-finish line. They're almost making contact again. They're still making contact. Almost getting turned. Here comes Whittington at the line. Jamal Pugh wins at Talladega. Jamal Pugh by 31 thousandths of a second over Jesse Whittington gets his first career victory in the SKMcars.com 330. Unbelievable. The wreck in the back, having just one car behind, he knew that all he needed was the push to get side by side with Porter. And at that point, it was just about getting the right help at the right time. And Whittington was able to catch up, and Porter had to block him instead of being able to keep side drafting the 10 who had help. And that was all she wrote for everybody else's chances. Out onto the front straightaway. Jamal Pugh, first career victory, entering Paul's set of shop victory lane. Unbelievable run to the checkered. Unbelievable help by Dana Shepard, who comes home third after spending most of this race a lap down. But Talladega once again producing a first-time winner. Let's take a look back at that finish and that at least that run towards that checkered flag. It was intense to say the least, with everything that was going on. Here's the blimp look. This was with 2 to go coming to the white flag. And that 44 machine, you see it deep in the traffic, trying to break free, just as Harlow and all of them are making moves. But Pugh, at this point, he knows that he has to wait until turn number 4 before he can think about making the move. Walden, Whittington get clear right around here. They're ready to go. They're ready to pounce. You see how much they stack up further back. And it was ultimately Whittington moving up high. Walden tried to block Whittington, couldn't come back down low to cover the 44. Slides across the 6, across the 5. Then Stempien gets turns Banks. That sends everybody on the backstretch sprinting. And you see almost a secondary wreck there on the rejoin effort. But then right here, this is where it all comes crashing down for Porter. He sees Pugh go up high, has to make the block, but he leaves the bottom open completely. Thought about blocking it, a little bit of contact. And right here, it's a drag race. Almost getting turned right there. Shepard goes to help the 10, nearly turns the 82, has to block Whittington up there. Duran making the run at the time. And at the start-finish line, Jamal Pugh, by mere inches, ends up taking the victory. Unbelievable scenes, unbelievable. I'm sure for the driver of the 10. as it was a close one. Not as close as we've seen here on the KBueno Racing Network and other times, but 31 thousandths is very much close. As that's much more or less the difference between your top two and 67 thousandths of a second covering your top four back to Jaden Porter. Unbelievable. Let's go over through our unofficial race results here from the Talladega Super Speedway. Jamal Pugh, what a job getting his first career victory here from Talladega, with Jesse Whittington coming up just a couple of thousandths of seconds short in second. Dana Shepard, unbelievable job to come back with a podium effort. Jaden Porter finishes fourth after having another chance at the race win. David Duran caps off our top five. Sixth place goes to Garrett Walden's number 43, with Timothy Stubblefield in seventh, Daniel Holdcroft eighth, Justin Erb rounds out in ninth, and Kevin Roy gets a top 10 effort when it's all said and done. Richard Swabley comes home in 11th, with Ron Vincent 12th, Steven Sempion in 13th, Stephen Harlow 14th, Brandon Banks rounds out our lead lap finishers in the 15th spot. Charles Stevens in 16th, Kip Beasley in the 17th spot had a really good chance to win there at the end. Warren Kyle Keith finishes 18th, Charles Van Schaik in 19th, James Kunkel in the 20th spot. Jason Anderson blew up there close to the end, finishes 21st, Matthew Perusini 22nd, and Brad Fulham rounds out our 23 cars for tonight's race. Well, now is our time to step aside and head down over into Victory Lane, where we get to talk to Jamal Pugh for the first time in the winner's circle. And Jamal, what a race. What a race it was for you. You were up and down on the strategy boards. It's only, I believe, your second or third start in this series, but you're already sitting in Victory Lane, and at Talladega Victory Lane at that. Talk us through that final restart and what was going through your mind.
I knew the leader. I figured the leader was gonna go in the middle of the box, so I was just thinking I need to get this jump with this leader so I can get clear of the high lane just in case I want to go high. So once we got clear, and then I was just staying with him, and I seen that was wrecking behind me. Then I seen my teammate behind me too, so I just knew I had help, and it was just us three. So once it was just us three, and we went into turn three, I knew he was gonna try to block me high coming off the four, so I had to hopefully had enough space to go back down and not get clipped. So that's how I was thinking on the last restart stuff. Because normally everybody go high. So
That was a good run for you, Jamal, and you cut your way through the field very nicely. You survived the final lap. This win is going to help you in the points in hopes of trying to close up to that chase cut line. Still a long ways to go. Do you think you can maybe close up on those points before we start talking chase?
yeah, hopefully. The first week wasn't too good. I only had like 14 laps. So hopefully we go to Michigan next. Hopefully we can get a good run there. Hopefully get a top 10 or something, get some points.
And before we let you go here from Victory Lane and let you celebrate here, Jamal, anybody you want to give a shout out to that helps makes this happen for you and the whole 10 team?
I'd like to shout out my team, Deb Racing. Shout out the admins of the league, uh, everybody that came out and watched us. I appreciate everybody.
Appreciate the time you take with us on your Sunday nights, Jamal. Congratulations on your first career victory. Enjoy Memorial Day weekend next weekend. We hope to see you out there in Michigan in 2 weeks.
All right, appreciate y'all. See y'all then.
That's Jamal Pugh, first career victory from Talladega Super Speedway. Unbelievable job. We'll now skip on one more position back to where it is Jesse Whittington who finished second in tonight's race. I almost had him. One moment. And we'll be talking to Jesse Whittington now, who just comes up 31 thousandths of a second short of his first career victory. And Jesse, it was really close there at the end. You were, for a good portion in this race, off the lead group. You were a part of those lead lap vehicles that were racing with those leaders. Talk us through what happened when you guys were racing there towards the end that brought out that first caution, and then just trying to see what you could do to win that race at the end.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, man, happy with the finish, but I'm really disappointed. At that first caution, all I was trying to do, I had my teammate in the 96. He was good on fuel. I was good on fuel, and I said, dude, let's push all out. We can make it to the end. I'll get you to the win. And I wasn't trying to do anything. I was trying to do what I could to stay in line and be predictable and everything. And then, I told Matt, I said, let's go ahead and move down. I said, we're clear of all of them. Let's move down and just ride it out. We got a few lap cars between you and second place. And whenever we go to move down, the 12 also moved down with us. And it wasn't anything. I wasn't trying to throw a block or anything like that. And I know it probably looked bad on the replays and stuff, but all I was trying to do is move down with my teammate, and it was just bad timing. And whenever it didn't work out, I went below the double yellow just to try to stay out of the way. And honestly, I don't know what happened from there. I hope I didn't have anything to do with that, but if I did, I do apologize to the whole league, because that was not at all my intentions. But other than that, man, coming down to the end, I don't know what the 6 car was doing to cause that second caution, because I know there was a little bit of a gap, but there wasn't near enough of a gap to make a 3 wide move down the middle. And from there it was just survival. And on that last lap, I was lined up with another teammate. I told him, let's move up. He kind of hesitated, and then whenever he tried to move up, it was too late. So I tried to give him room, and next thing I know, he's wrecking. So I said, screw it. Let's see if I can get this run. If it wasn't for the 44 pushing the 10, I think we would have had it. But it is what it is. Their teammates pushing one another to the win. I respect it. And congratulations to Jamal and Dana for collecting the podium as well.
And you really needed this good run to help your chase situation out, Jesse. So now that we'll move to Michigan in 2 weeks, how do you think that your points outlook will be going into the summer?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I was 9 points behind Kevin Roy going into tonight, and I finished 9 spots ahead of him. Plus, I have a lap bled, and I don't think he got any bonus points. So, best case scenario, we can go into Michigan with a 1-point advantage right above the cut line. Worst case scenario, I'm pretty sure we're going to be tied. So, mindset is just practice with that 110 horsepower and see how the runs develop. I'm actually really looking forward to that. Diving off into the corner at about 210 is what it seems like it'll be.
It's going to be fun to watch. I'm certain it's going to be fun to be a part of as well, Jesse. And before we let you go from this second place finish here tonight, anybody you want to give a shout out to that helps make this happen for you and the whole 94 team?
Always my wife, my kids. They support me with this, and I can't thank them enough for their love and support. Shady Rays is on the hood for tonight for a majority of the rest of the season as well. Love their sunglasses. Go check them out. We also got Luke Haley on the back. Big Fish Barbecue on the deck lid. Nubwo, if you're looking for a good cheap headset, please go look them up. About $30 on Amazon right now, and they're wireless. I love them. Moza as well. Love their stuff. And thanks to the league for giving me this opportunity and let me be a part of this and all of the work that they do throughout the week. And thanks to you for putting on the broadcast tonight. Man, just looking forward to next week or 2 weeks from now.
We hope to see you then at Michigan International Speedway. Congratulations on your podium effort here tonight. Enjoy Memorial Day weekend. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your night, man.
That's Jesse Whittington, runner-up finisher tonight from the Talladega Super Speedway. Came oh so close to the victory, but it'll be a good points day nonetheless for the driver of the 94. We'll talk to our final interview of the night, which is third place finisher number 44 of Dana Shepard. And Dana, what a comeback effort it was for you for all of the night. You started after the first pit stop sequence, lost the lead draft, you go a lap down, you spend most of the race a lap down, and then somehow you found yourself with an opportunity to be in position to win or help your teammate out for the win talk us through what the race was like in your perspective and kind of surviving that last lap crash to end up third.
Well, yeah. I mean, I made 2 pit stop mistakes. Totally on me. I misjudged my board. So as soon as you miss your board, you're going to lose time. I just never was able to make it back up. But my big plan was get lapped, get in with the lead pack, and then just ride with them and hope for a caution. So that's really what I was doing at that point, trying to save fuel and get back into sequence with everybody. But that last lap there, my teammate, he's had a rough time lately, and I needed to just work with him, and I don't need to win if he can win. So I was not leaving his bumper.
It worked out really well for you. You're able to catch up to the two at the front of the field, push your teammate to the win ahead of Jaden Porter. And after this podium finish here tonight, Dana, and we move into Michigan in 2 weeks' time, what do you think is going to be the goal for this whole team? I talked with Jamal about that, and you guys made a couple starts here in the latter portion of this season. Do you think a chase hopes exists still?
Well, I really like Michigan. There's something about that track. I generally run real well there, and it's just a momentum track, so it works well. Having a late start to the season, of course, we didn't really have a lot of expectations except to come in and just be competitive, win some races, and see how the season played out. But once I joined the league, I realized there were some really heavy hitters in here that really race well, good racecraft, and nothing was going to be easy here.
And of course, you were able to notch in that podium effort at Talladega. I'm sure it's going to be one to look back on until we can get more consistent ones of these. I'm sure it's not the last time we'll talk to you, Dana, in a top 3 effort. But before we let you go here tonight, anybody want to give a shout out to the help makes this happen for you and the whole 44 team?
Well, I just got to thank you guys here in the league for bringing us along late like this. We really appreciate it. And, the admins, they do a really good job in this league of watching us. But I got to thank all my family and, close friends that watch these races. It's not really the real thing at the track, but it's pretty close, and I really enjoy doing it. And I got to thank Daniel at DP. He is a huge supporter of this team that we're in. All these paints that we have are from him, and he never hesitates to get us something when we need it. So, but thank you to everybody.
Appreciate the time you take with us on Sunday nights. Dana, congratulations on a podium effort. Hope to see you out there in Michigan in 2 weeks.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we'll see you there.
Dana Shepard, podium finisher here tonight from the Talladega Super Speedway. And that'll round out our interviews for the night. What a job from that team to get 2 on the podium, 1 in the race win in Jamal Pugh to round out our night here from Talladega. As we look forward in our schedule now, it's like you've been hearing me say, Michigan International Speedway, the very next one on our list. In 2 weeks' time after Memorial Day weekend, we'll have Kenneth Bueno on the call for that race on May 31st. Before we then go to Pocono Raceway, the Tricky Triangle of sorts on June 7th, followed by the short track out west at night Phoenix Raceway and the Daytona International Speedway. So only 4 races will be sandwiched in between now and when we go racing again from a super speedway at the end of June. That's certainly going to be an interesting one to partake in to see what kind of changes maybe get made to the package, if any at all. I think the admins will look at tonight's race and evaluate that before making any further decisions. So we'll see what that ends up coming out to. Maybe 110% gets used at Michigan. That seems to be where we're leaning on, and that would make sense. I think that would put on a really good show with these next-gen cars, just giving them a whole lot more speed, like Kevin Harvick seems to be saying on the broadcast every other week. So I'm sure that we could use that, and I'm sure it'll be very much interesting to watch going forward, to say the least. On behalf of all the admin team members that helped make this happen on the Droppin' the Hammer Cup Series, from Steven Stempien, Warren Kyle Keith, from Stephen Harlow, everybody that helps put this league together, from all the members on the KBueno Racing Network that help make this happen week in and week out, from all the coverage, from all the leagues to all the members, from Eli Comerford, JJ Hill, to Keelan Belsha, Charlie Beyer, Randy Eggers, to Kenneth Bueno, to Nate Polite, who's usually with me in the booth on Monday nights, and we'll have that show for you tomorrow, to Mike Eno, who participates in our SAC efforts. Thank you to everybody that helps make this happen. I'm Francisco Bacallao saying so long and have a good night. Congratulations on Jamal Pugh for capturing his first career victory in Droppin' the Hammer competition. Be sure to join us next week, or 2 weeks from now, at the Michigan International Speedway for more racing on Droppin' the Hammer, and be sure to join us tomorrow night for the KBueno Racing Network Truck Series finale from the Homestead Miami Speedway.